Welcome everyone to our February 2015 3M Sterile U live webinar. My name is Christoph Di Campo and I'm part of 3M Infection Prevention Division Marketing and Education team. And with me facilitating today's webinar is Larry Talapa, who is part of our Technical Service and Education team. Today's topic is Water Quality for CSSDs 101, co-presented by Emily Mitzel and Paul Littley. Before we get started with the presentation, some housekeeping items. You might have noticed that we have launched our new 3M Healthcare Academy with a new look, but with the same great content you have come to expect from us. We have added polling questions throughout this presentation, and since all responses are kept anonymous, we encourage you to provide your input. In order for you to see the polling results on your screen, you will need to also respond to the question. Remember, all responses are kept anonymous, so no worries there. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to send them through the chat feature, and Larry will respond back to you. And if time permits, we will ask the question at the end of the webinar. Note that we do not report name or facility when relaying questions that come in from our chat line. If you get disconnected from the internet, we recommend that you keep listening. Slides will be sent to you later. The following organizations approved this webinar for 1 credit hours toward recertification: ISHAM, CBSPD, and the State of California Board of Nursing. Within 1 week, the slides, recording, and the Sterile Tech CE certificate will be emailed to you. Understanding there may be a group of you sharing a computer, the certificates will be emailed to the person that logged in, and the name on the certificate will be blank, so please forward to your colleagues. RNs must complete and return the evaluation before certificates are issued. Now let me introduce to you our speakers for today. Emily Mitzel is a laboratory manager at Nelson Laboratories, a microbiological testing company specialized in improving the quality of life by ensuring medical products are safe, sterile, and functional. Her expertise includes reusable devices, reprocessing validation, pharmaceutical testing, microbiology testing, and media production. Emily presented at the AAMI FDA Reprocessing Summit in 2011 and currently presents at Nelson Laboratories seminars and client facilities across the U.S. Emily is an active committee member of many working groups with the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation, AAMI, and the American Society of Testing and Materials, ASTM. Her co-presenter, Paul Littley, is a consultant manager also at Nelson Laboratories. He has over 11 years of medical device industry experience working in sterility assurance, quality assurance, manufacturing, and research and development. His expertise includes ethylene oxide sterilization validation, USP grade water system validation, device reprocessing, cleaning validation, microbiology testing, and process control. Paul is an active committee member of multiple working groups with the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation, known as AAMI.
Hi everyone, this is Larry, and as Christoph had mentioned, we will have several polling questions throughout the webinar, and this first polling question is presented as an example, as a practice of how it works. So all you need to do is select the answer to including yourself, how many people are listening to this webinar at your location. When you choose an answer and say submit, then you will see the results from the others participating in the webinar and answering the questions. Again, as Christoph had mentioned, This is all anonymous. This is more for everyone everyone watching, just to get an understanding of where we're at, of the people listening to the webinar. Then from there, I will hand it off to Emily and Paul.
Good morning and welcome. Nelson Laboratories is excited to be involved in this webinar today. We thank 3M for the opportunity to present this interesting and important topic. All right, we'll start out today with why water quality is so important. Water quality is probably the most widely used raw material in medical device manufacturing and is very important in the reprocessing of medical devices. The selection of the appropriate water quality is critical to reduce patient risk to infection. The quality of water is dependent on the manufacturing process, the product need, and the regulatory requirements. Contaminants such as bacterial endotoxin, microbes, and particulates from water of lesser quality used in the cleaning process may significantly impact the health of a patient and the functionality of the device. Today, we will be reviewing the general structure and content of AAMI TIR 34, which is entitled Water for the Reprocessing of Medical Devices. We will describe the importance of water quality and effective water treatment. Next, the categories of water quality for medical device reprocessing will be identified and explained with the appropriate acceptance criteria. The selection of water quality will then be defined and the process will be explained. And lastly, we will explain water quality monitoring importance and how to make sure it is adequate. AAMI TIR 34 was just published in September of 2014. This was a republished guideline and we made a lot of major changes to it. This document was specifically written for healthcare facilities for medical device reprocessing. There are sections aimed toward personnel that reprocess medical devices, which explains how to determine what type of water quality to use on what stage of medical device reprocessing. There are also sections aimed toward water maintenance personnel, which explain how to achieve certain water qualities. The quality of water for medical device reprocessing is important at all stages of reprocessing and more important during specific stages. This technical informational report covers the quality of water that is to be used during the procedures during the clean, rinse, disinfect, and sterilization of medical devices during the reprocessing steps. It also defines specific water types based on hardness, pH, microorganism levels, bacterial endotoxin levels, and so on. The AAMI TIR 34 is a fairly large 66-page document with many parts of interest. I will go over the most important parts and what they contain. The importance of water quality and effective water treatment section includes the impacts of adverse water quality, the treatment of water, categories of medical devices, and stages of medical device reprocessing, and the correlation of the appropriate water quality to be used at each step. The section on the categories of water quality for medical device reprocessing is designated with 2 categories of water quality, which we will cover in great detail later in this webinar. The part of the document on selection of water quality goes over all water quality requirements of cleaning, disinfection, and sterilization. The next section of the document, entitled Water Treatment Systems, includes designing a water quality system and general issues associated with the entire process. The Water Quality Monitoring section states what should be monitored and the acceptance criteria associated with the appropriate testing. The Strategies for Bacterial Control section is very important, and it goes over how to ensure the system is free of organisms to the proper extent. And lastly, the Continuous Quality Improvement part defines all of the quality processes that need to be associated with the water system. UTR 34 also has many very important annexes, which include the Water Treatment Methods Annex, which goes into every process that may be incorporated into the water quality process. We will be covering this in detail later. It also includes what substance is removed by each process and examples of these specific water treatment processes. The Annex on water treatment equipment and processes shows how to define the preventative maintenance on the entire water system. This includes how often filters should be replaced, etc. Water Storage and Distribution Annex goes into all the information on why and where the water is stored and how it is distributed through the system. The Strategies for Bacterial Control Annex includes sampling, bacterial plating methods, which include spread plating, filtration plating, enumeration, and bacterial endotoxin testing. The Annex on Thermal Disinfection includes the A sub O concept, times, temperatures, and definitions of thermal disinfection. The Water Treatment Using Filtration Annex goes into detail on the pretreatment filters, which removes debris and organic material, and submicron filters, which remove organisms. The last annex covers typical water quality issues that may be found during the reprocessing of medical devices. This part is brand new to this document and has great pictures of observed problems, causes, and recommendations. It's really a great flow chart that shows exactly what to do with different problems associated. Next, we will go through some key definitions that will help you understand all parts of this webinar. The first set of definitions are specific water quality criteria that must be monitored and determined as acceptance criteria. Bioburden is the population of viable microorganisms on or in a product or raw material. This is crucial to critical water, but should be very limited on potable or feed water. Endotoxin is defined as a constituent in the cell wall of gram-negative bacteria, which is pyrogenic to humans. This is mainly a result of waterborne pathogens like Pseudomonas aeruginosa. The endotoxin is not deactivated by most methods of sterilization, so it needs to be removed by the cleaning process. Conductivity is the measure of the ability of water to pass through an electrical current. This is also an indirect measurement of total dissolved solids. The inverse of conductivity is resistivity, and this is the ability of water to resist the flow of electricity. Total organic carbon is a measure of the organic content in a solution. This is a very sensitive but not specific test for water quality. So we don't know exactly what carbonaceous material is in water, but we know the exact quantity of it. The next set of definitions are specific water quality treatment definitions. And we will go into all of these in more detail later, but I wanted to get you guys a basic understanding of these definitions at this point. Water purity is an indication to the extent of which impurities have been removed based on product need. Deionization is the water treatment process that uses specifically manufactured ion exchange resin to remove ionized salts from the water. Distillation is the water treatment process that uses phase change to purify water. And softening of water is the removal of ions that cause scaling or water to be hard. And this process removes calcium and magnesium. So more of these water treatment definitions include potable water, which is water that has been treated and delivered in a manner so that meets EPA National Primary Drinking Water Regulations guidelines and is suitable for drinking. The expectation is that the feed water that comes into the facility is potable water. Microfiltration utilizes a filter designed to remove particulates in the range of 0.1 to 3 microns. Ultrafiltration utilizes a membrane filter with a pore size of 0.001 to 0.05 microns. And reverse osmosis is the water purification technology that uses semi-permeable membrane to remove large particles from drinking water. All right, now we are on to polling question number 2. And this question is, how is your water used for reprocessing treated at your facility. The options, and you can choose any of these and multiple ones, are deionization, distillation, softening, filtration, reverse osmosis, and the last one, I don't know. And that's why you guys are here. All right, we'll give it a little more time to let everybody respond. Yes, and this is very similar to what we saw in the previous webinar this morning, is that a lot of you do not know, which is good. I mean, I was scared to see that in the first one, but now we know that that's, why you guys are here listening to this webinar. And it looks to me like you guys are all doing the right thing. Everybody should be softening their water. And then we just go down the line. So that's really, really good to see that we've got a lot of this information filtered and so on.
In the healthcare industry, when we talk of water quality, we are referring to water with a reduced level of impurities as that of potable or drinking water. Because of its strong solvent characteristics, water inherently contains a myriad of impurities absorbed from the environment. We categorize these impurities as suspended particles, ionic or dissolved particles, organic material, microbiological in nature, and finally dissolved gases. Specifically, suspended particles include silt, clay, and decomposed organic matter, and is often referred to as turbidity due to the visual cloudiness observed. Ionic or dissolved particles, also known as total dissolved solids, refers primarily to those scaling metals such as calcium and magnesium, but may also include iron, manganese, as well as ionized salts. Organic impurities include large chain hydrocarbons from industrial waste, pesticides, and runoff from the environment. These are also categorized in tests as total organic carbon, as Emily so stated earlier. Some microbial impurities that are included, not only waterborne microorganisms such as Pseudomonas and Burkholderia and coliforms strains, but also include endotoxin. The final water impurity we'll discuss is the dissolved gases. Dissolved gas impurities include atmospheric gases such as oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide, as well as other gas impurities such as ammonia. As an overall statement regarding water quality, if it is not hydrogen or a hydroxide ion, it is considered a contaminant or an impurity. With that said, the level of acceptable impurities is determined by the potential of that impurity to negatively impact the process, product, or the patient health. This last statement becomes vitally important later on as we select our water quality category and requirements for the process and product. Adverse effects of excessive levels of impurities may lead to product-related issues such as corrosion and pitting, or functional failures due to the buildup of organic soils, or what we refer to as biomass. If these excessive impurities are microbial in nature, the sterility of the device may be impacted or compromised due to the fact a higher product bioburden load might excessively challenge the sterilization dose or cycle time. Adverse effects of impurities may also impact the process by interfering with the effectiveness of detergents or due to scaling of washer system equipment. And finally, patient health may be impacted by infection or toxicity from improperly treated water systems. To mitigate these risks, potable or drinking water is treated to reduce the amount of impurities and potential adverse effects they possess. This increase in the quality of water aids in the prevention of adding additional contamination from the cleaning process from microbial sources as well as oxidizing agents which may corrode or pit metal devices. Additionally, a high-quality water free of scaling minerals increases the efficiency and effectiveness of detergents. Further treatment and removal of toxic organic compounds will also reduce the risk of adverse biological response. And next we move into another polling question regarding in your facility if you have observed effects of poor water quality in the form of, this is the total dissolved, or I'm sorry, the suspended solids we're talking about, gold-brown discoloration, washer disinfectors, orange-brown discoloration, rainbowing discoloration, black-purple staining. White chalky deposits are common from calcium and magnesium, those hard mineral sources, or other types of effects. And of course, the last selection is if no observed effects in the facility have been observed. So as the results poll in, again, similar to last webinar, we're seeing that the white chalky deposits on surface are very prevalent in some of your facilities and some of your water systems. Again, this is most likely due to those scaling minerals, the calcium and magnesium that we see in hard water, which many of the municipal water systems contain. Now that we have an understanding of water impurities and the potential adverse effects, let's discuss water treatment methods. In general, a water system is composed of a series of filtration methods and ion exchange technologies. Each stage is designated to remove a particular range of contaminants. Because no single technology alone will remove all types of contaminants, effectively, a combination of purification technologies is typically needed. Water treatment can be broken down into two main steps or stages identified as pretreatment and principal treatment. The pretreatment and principal treatment are often referred to as water quality generation. The following stages are storage and distribution of the quality water to its point of use. Pretreatment methods include softening and or dechlorination, followed by principal treatment methods such as media filtration, reverse osmosis, and ultrafiltration or microfiltration. Deionization is typically the final treatment method prior to distribution and use. In the following flow diagram, we see a depiction of a general reverse osmosis deionization water treatment system. We start with our incoming source or feed water, and to reiterate Emily's statement, the expectation is that incoming water will meet EPA regulations for drinking water. Our pre-treatment stage includes a sediment filter to remove incoming suspended solids, followed by a water softener to remove hard minerals, which can cause scaling on equipment. The softener is followed by a carbon bed for removal of chlorine and reduction of organic impurities. Once the chlorine is removed from the system becomes extremely susceptible to microbial propagation and growth, commonly referred to as biofilms. This is the main point and the main control issue in many of our high purity water systems or high quality water systems. In this scenario, the principal treatment method is reverse osmosis. Due to the fact RO membrane filtration is a slow process, a storage tank is required to meet peak demands from water usage. After storage and prior to distribution, the water is deionized. Taking a deeper dive into feed water pretreatment, the goal in pretreatment is to remove as many impurities as possible prior to the principal treatment with lower cost methods. The purpose being to lessen the impact on the higher priced principal treatment methods, thus extending the equipment life or increasing the interval of equipment services. We discussed in the prior diagram a first stage sediment filter, which is always advisable to capture and remove large particle suspended materials. Depending on the geographical location, the next stage of green sand or softening is used to reduce total dissolved solids and scaling impurities. For example of geographical location, the Northeast is common to experience a high iron content in feed water. For removal, a green sand pretreatment is commonly implemented into the water system design. In the Southwest and Southeast, however, high calcium and magnesium content is common in municipal water systems, and a softening technology is commonplace in pretreatment. Carbon beds are commonplace prior to principal treatment as they further remove chlorine and total organic carbon through absorption. Alternate dechlorination methods include chemical treatment with sodium bisulfate, for example. Moving downstream into principal water treatment, various options exist here as well. Again, depending on the required water quality category for designated use or process needs, careful selection of the principal treatment is key. Microfiltration and ultrafiltration are depth filtration technologies, or layered filtration, designed to remove particulates in the range of 0.1 to 0.05 microns in diameter. This level of filtration will adequately remove microorganisms, suspended solids, but only a percentage of organic carbon and endotoxin. Ionic impurities will not be removed by micro or ultrafiltration. Reverse osmosis utilizes high pressure to force water across a semi-permeable membrane. Perhaps the most effective filtration method, RO removes 100% of microorganisms as well as endotoxins and removes approximately 90 to 95% of ionic and organic molecules. The disadvantage of RO treatment is equipment expense, slow water generation, and low efficiency. By design, RO membranes only recover approximately 25% of incoming water. Distillation is the process of phase change or vaporizing and subsequent condensing of water to remove dissolved and suspended substances. Distillation is extremely effective in removing microorganisms, endotoxins, organic compounds, and ionic impurities as well. Deionization is the process of removing ions via ion exchange. Effective deionization can remove 98% of both positively and negatively charged ions. In high-quality water systems, combination of these treatment methods are common in system designs to meet the required need. Once the quality water is generated, it is stored and ready for distribution. The key in storage and distribution is to maintain the original quality of the generated water throughout the entire system. This is accomplished by proper system design and operation by continuously recirculating the water, minimizing or eliminating areas of reduced or restricted flow, and minimizing the likelihood of microbial contamination and growth through high flow rates and proper maintenance.
As one of the committee members and co-chairs of AAMI TIR 34, we spent a great number of hours, and to be honest, years, researching and debating on the types of water quality this TIR should specify. The committee decided to simplify the categories down to 2 categories to make it easier for healthcare facility personnel to determine what is appropriate and meet the acceptance criteria. The 2 categories of water that the committee defined are utility water, which is water that comes from the tap that may or may not require further treatment. This type of water is used for flushing, washing, and rinsing steps in reprocessing. The second category is considered critical water, which is water that is extensively treated to ensure microorganisms, inorganic and organic materials are removed. This type of water is used for the final rinse in disinfection or steam generation. This chart is the acceptance criteria for each category of water from TIR 34. It is a very nice chart which shows what the utility water and critical water will be used for, and also the specific acceptance criteria that is very important during each water use specification and type of water acceptance criteria. The appropriate hardness of utility water should be less than 150 micrograms per per liter, and less than 1 milligram per liter for critical water. The acceptance water for conductivity for utility water should be less than 500 microsiemens per centimeter and less than 10 microsiemens per centimeter for critical water. The pH for utility water should be between 6 and 9, and the pH for critical water should be between 5 and 7. Utility water should have less than 250 milligrams per liter of chlorides and less than 1 milligram per liter of chlorides for critical water. And probably the most important part of the differentiation between utility and critical water is that critical water should have less than 10 colony-forming units per milliliter and less than 10 endotoxin units per milliliter. The type of medical device that will be reprocessed determines the quality of water that should be used. Medical devices are placed into one of three categories determined on the potential risk of infection associated with the intended use. These are referred to as the Spalding Classification and are described in the document from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention and the Healthcare Infection Control Practices Advisory Committee, and the document is entitled Guidelines for Disinfection and Sterilization in Healthcare Facilities. This document was published in 2008. The three categories are based on criticality of the medical device. Critical devices are introduced directly into the human body, either in contact with the bloodstream or into normally sterile areas of the body. Examples of these critical devices include surgical instruments, needles, forceps, cardiac catheters, and implants. Semi-critical devices contact intact mucosal membranes or non-intact skin, but usually do not penetrate the blood barrier or normally sterile areas of the body. Examples of semi-critical devices include flexible fiber optic endoscopes, laryngoscopes, and respiratory devices. Non-critical devices usually contact only intact skin. Examples of non-critical devices include devices such as blood pressure cuffs. Now, these devices will, based on criticality, will define the reprocessing steps and the quality that is needed. For example, critical devices need to have a terminal sterilization process, and this is also really shows how important the final rinse and the water used for the sterilization process is, and that should be the critical water. This next slide shows the stages of reprocessing medical devices and the specific water quality that should be associated with this step. Utility water is used for all steps in manual cleaning and the first steps of automated cleaning. The disinfection should use critical water. This may depend on if the device will be terminally sterilized or just disinfected. We had a few questions regarding this on the previous webinar, and I wanted to clarify this in the fact that the TR34 states that the water for the final rinse is dependent on the category of medical device, and that the written IFU should be consulted before to determine the exact quality of water that should be used for rinsing the device. It says some manufacturers of medical washers and medical washer disinfectors recommend tap water be used for the initial rinse, followed by deionized or purified rinse for the final rinse of all categories of instruments. And this is definitely the best practice, is to ensure that that final rinse is always of a higher quality than just a utility water. It may not need to be the full critical water capacity, but it definitely needs to be more than just a utility water. This chart goes through this information in a more condensed version than in the TR34, which is covered in section 5.2, which is a lot of verbiage, so I just kind of condensed it onto one chart to make it easier for everybody to read.
Proper selection of water quality in conjunction with system considerations are key as in any process design. The selected water process should be effective for the given process or product need, reliable or sustainable, economical. For example, RO will definitely provide high-quality water, but the process may only require ultrafiltration. A common approach to proper selection of water quality includes defining the designated use, identifying water quality criteria, and finally establishing anti-degradation strategies. Defining the designated use is the first step in identifying what water will be used and what impurities should be removed for the process or product. Next, the water quality criteria should be selected for monitoring. Common quality criteria measurements are microbial, total organic carbon, or conductivity. And finally, establishing these anti-degradation strategies maintain the longevity of the system. Proper design and operational performance is used to minimize biofilm formation and system fouling, for example. Water selection criteria should take into account incoming feed water impurities such as total dissolved solids, peak demand volumes for proper sizing of filtration system and storage tank, and system maintenance. Installing a complex system without proper know-how of maintenance requirements may lead to out-of-spec conditions and expensive repairs leading to excessive downtime. These user needs factor directly into system design and configuration. Once a quality water system is properly installed and validated to meet the required grade of water, implementation of a process control system and best practice are crucial in maintaining the water system and associated quality. Maintaining the desired quality of water not only requires system monitoring, but correct data interpretation and training of test data results. Establishing a robust sampling plan and developing an associated baseline for action and alert levels is vital to early detection of potentially catastrophic impacts or out-of-spec conditions. These monitoring plans should be documented, trended, periodically reviewed, and adjusted as needed to ensure maximum system performance. Typical monitoring plans include weekly or monthly measuring of water quality criteria such as microbial levels, conductivity or resistivity, which measures the total dissolved solids or those ionic compounds, that impurities, total organic carbon impurities, endotoxin, temperature, and pH. This brings us to our next polling question. In your facility, how often is your critical water tested? Is it tested on a daily, weekly, monthly period, or more long-term, as in 6 months, yearly? And of course, if you don't know, please select the I don't know button. So the results are not unlike what we would expect. Almost 55% of the attendees don't know or are not aware of the critical water testing. Very little of our attendees test daily. Weekly and monthly, as we expect, are more prominent. And then, of course, almost 10% are in the never category, which is of concern. Digging a little deeper into industry practice, which criteria are tested during your water monitoring? Is it microbial levels, conductivity and or resistivity, total organic carbon content, endotoxin, temperature, pH, or when your water is not monitored? And of course, again, if you don't know, please select this button. So again, the I don't know category is almost 60%. Again, why we're all here. Microbial level, not as we would be surprised by, very high, almost 15% monitoring. pH in the 20% range, and then some of the other attributes are less than 10% there. So again, a good mix of testing, but again, that microbial is typically the number one attribute that is monitored on a periodic basis. So process control is not limited to monitoring and training of data. Adherence to a strict preventive maintenance program is of equal importance in maintaining the operational state of the high-quality water system. Water system maintenance should never be scheduled as an as-needed or on a reactive basis. Common preventive maintenance activities include monthly and or quarterly activities. Some of these activities include sanitization, filter or tank change, feed water monitoring and trending of TDF, typically from, feed water from incoming to see what your system is battling against, so to speak. In a healthy PM schedule or preventive maintenance schedule will also include semi-annual and annual activities. These more long-term interval activities include RO unit inspection and servicing, measurement system calibration, for example, conductivity meters, flow meters, if you have an inline pH meter, the calibration of those systems. And then lastly, just an example of distribution pump operation and inspection, replacement or inspection of those wear components such as the O-rings and or gaskets. This brings up our next polling question. In your facility, who maintains your water treatment system? Is it the manufacturer service technician, an internal biomed or quality person, facilities, an outside third-party vendor, or if you don't know, go ahead and select the I don't know button. So not surprisingly, in many of the facilities, many of the manufacturers, the facilities department is doing the maintenance of the water system. Not uncommon to see internal biomed or even a third-party vendor coming in and managing the maintenance of the system. Again, typically what we want to see here is somebody with a purified water background or high-quality water background, not just your typical or general facilities technician. This brings us to close of today's water system presentation. In summary, the goal of effective water treatment in medical device reprocessing is to prolong the life of the medical instrumentation, ensure effective device functionality, and minimize the risk of adverse patient outcomes arising from contamination. Management of a quality water system is paramount in every healthcare facility and our manufacturing environment. It is the responsibility of the device reprocessing personnel in conjunction with healthcare technology management personnel to ensure the proper water quality for the various stages in medical device reprocessing. Thank you all again for joining us today in this quality water presentation.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Emily, for this great presentation. Very informative and applicable to everyone in this call. If anyone in the line has a question for Emily or Paul, please hit *7 to unmute your line and ask the question. Otherwise, we'll check on the chat line and see what questions we have in there. So, Larry, do you have any questions through the chat line?
Yes, we have a couple questions. The first one is, can new plumbing in a system impact or affect the water impurities? Paul, Emily, what do you think on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's almost a no-brainer. Depending on what the actual water quality requirements are, the distribution or plumbing material is. If we're talking about a stainless steel, you still might get, what we see there is probably more common like a microbial impurity because stainless steel just does not shed or leach. If we're talking about a polymeric lining or material, then yeah, you could definitely see an increase in total organic carbon from leaching of the actual piping itself, or maybe from some of the adhesives used to connect componentry. So good question, and yeah, absolutely. Again, to reduce those levels, what you want to do is just cycle and dump and repeat, and that's the most effective way of getting rid of those leachables. And over time, as that system seasons itself, you will see, or you should see those impurities, especially like I said, the TOC drop off.
Excellent. Excellent. Actually, I didn't know that as well. For water quality, could it be different in different regions of the country?
So water quality, are we talking drinking water, or are we talking actual treated water? So to answer the first one, yes, municipal water systems vary from region to region, city to city. Even here in Salt Lake, we see one township having significantly different results over another with regards to total dissolved solids, the amount of chlorine added to the water system. At the end of the day, the incoming water has to meet the EPA regulations for the National Primary Drinking Water Regulations. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. And another question, why is pH important? I see that there are different acceptance criteria for critical and utility.
pH, again, is a measure of acidity or alkalinity. In pure water, obviously it's 7. On a scale of 0 to 14, it's 7. pH is an indicator, again, of just the ionic acidity, alkalinity. In a healthy water system, it shouldn't really fluctuate too far away from 7. But again, depending on some of your dissolved gases, such as ammonia or ammonium, ammonia can form into ammonia, and again increase your pH. So again, some of those ionic salts can basically be acidic in nature and then decrease your pH. So again, if you're monitoring your other components, we typically don't see a huge fluctuation in pH unless you're extremely out of spec or way offline with some of those other measurements of impurities.
Hey, excellent. Okay, we got some more that chatted in. So what are the recommendations for the frequency of testing a water system?
So this is always, again, a $1 million question. It depends on the stability of your system. If it's a brand new system coming freshly out of qualification and validation, you want to test a little bit more frequently. It is not uncommon to test at a higher frequency or greater frequency for the first year of the system in operation, and then from there, looking at your results, looking at the stability of the system, and then maybe backing off from there. But it's not uncommon to give you actual dates or days, weekly to monthly. Again, just depending on what the quality attribute is you're looking for, and again, the stability of the system. But also, if you have inline systems, if we're talking graph samples versus inline measurements, that throws another variable into how I can answer that question or how I answer that question. So typically what we see is, again, weekly or monthly testing of different attributes from your different point of uses.
Okay, excellent. All right, and then should critical water be softened and filtered? What are the actual recommendations?
So filtered is a very general, broad term. Softening is almost always a recommendation, again, depending on your locale, your geographical location. If you're in a hard water state, which most of the southeast and southwest are hard water states, as I stated in the presentation, you'll definitely want to do some level of softening. Removal of those calcium and magnesium compounds will not only prevent against scaling in your washers and disinfectants, it'll also increase the efficiency of your detergents. So calcium and magnesium really interfere with the surfactants in your detergents and really degrade the efficiency of your cleaning agents, or detergent agents, excuse me. So I can't say enough about softened water. The only caveat there would be in some regions in California, softened water is being pushed out due to the high level of sodium and salts in the wastewater. So again, California is a little bit different animal, but the majority of the states, if you have a high calcium magnesium content, definitely soften.
Okay. Wow. Very interesting. Another question that just came in: who would typically do the water quality testing?
This question comes up not only in the last presentation webinar, but always. Again, another $1 million question. Who's responsible? Typically what I've seen in my experience is it's a partnership between facilities and quality personnel. So typically facilities will manage the maintenance and those wet chemistry tests on site, such as incoming TDS, or even daily monitoring of your conductivity if you have an inline meter. Again, what I see is a lot of quality personnel will be the actual ones doing the grab samples or monitoring the more critical components like microbial, total organic carbon, and then of course the trending of those results.
Okay, excellent. Kind of a similar related question. It looks like a facility technician does some testing at this specific facility where the question came in, but they are wondering, are there available testing kits for testing the quality of water for the facility, like microbes and conductivity? So is it possible to just get a kit for all of this type of testing?
For most attributes, with the exception, the most test kits, the handheld test kits, are what we're talking about, something like what facilities would do. Very common to have test kits for total dissolved solids, chlorine content. Again, some of those on site right there, typically measured right there, right by your water system, by your facilities personnel. Test kits for microbial, conductivity, and TOC, no, not as common. Nelson Labs does provide the sampler containers as well as the testing to test for that. But again, those quick test kits, the rapid readouts, are not readily available for on-site use.
All right, that looks like all the questions that came in.
Great, perfect. Does anyone else have a question? If you do, please hit *7 and then you can ask your question for Emily and Paul. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. This was a great webinar. So if you enjoyed this webinar as much as we did, you can go ahead and check our 3M Sterile U live webinar. And this is, you can have up to 12 webinars that are archived in our website. And this is at www.3m.com/3M Sterile U. Now, our next webinar, our next Sterile U webinar will be on Thursday, March 19th, and we'll cover the topic of IUSS, follow the standards or get cited. We hope to have you all connecting next month. And thank you again for your participation and your great questions. And thank you also to our team, our co-presenters, Emily and Paul. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.